Hi, my name's Malcolm, and today I'm going to convince you that there are no mind-independent material objects. We often think that the things we're seeing are really out there, not merely our perceptions, but mind-independent material objects. So what happens when we realize that what we're perceiving isn't the object itself, but merely a representation of it? A representation which might not actually resemble the object at all. Issues like this led the 17th century philosopher John Locke to make a useful distinction between what he called primary qualities and secondary qualities. Primary qualities are qualities which are perceived as they exist in the object itself. That is, our perception of a primary quality resembles that quality in the object. In contrast, secondary qualities are those qualities which are not perceived as they are in the object itself. That is, our perception of a secondary quality does not resemble that quality in the object. Rather, secondary qualities are merely the object's abilities to produce sensations in our minds. So let's think of our ball again. What are some of its sensible qualities? Well, it has a certain color, size, feel, sound, even taste and smell. So how can we tell which ones are primary qualities and which ones are these weird secondary qualities, which are just abilities to produce sensations in our minds? Well, as we just saw with color, if we can find a change in the quality without having changed the object, we can be sure that the quality does not resemble the object itself. Because if we've changed the quality without changing the object, then the quality depends upon our perception in order to appear as it does. And if the quality resembled the object itself, it would have to be independent of our perception. In which case, if there were no change in the object, there couldn't be a change in the quality. So let's call this the relativity thesis. If a quality can change without a corresponding change in the object, that quality must be mind-dependent. We might have first thought that the color sensation we had of the ball resembled some quality in the ball itself. But in fact, we've seen that it can't be, because different light settings will cause the color to change without a corresponding change in the ball itself. Thus, it seems that the color we perceive can't resemble the qualities of the ball. In other words, it's a secondary quality. Now let's revisit this primary and secondary quality distinction. As I've just said, if secondary qualities do not resemble the object itself, they must be mind-dependent. Whereas, if primary qualities do resemble the object itself, they will be mind-independent. Since our perceptions of color do not resemble whatever is going on in the ball itself, it follows that the quality of color as we experience it is mind-dependent. And we can tell which qualities are which are primary and which are secondary, by testing our perceptions of them against the relativity thesis. Now, in the 18th century, another philosopher named George Berkeley used the relativity thesis to argue that all qualities were secondary qualities. That is, Berkeley claimed that all qualities were mind-dependent. But if that's the case, if all qualities are mind-dependent, then why would we think that things that we perceive exist independently of our minds at all? Why would we think that there are mind-independent material objects? Let's see how Berkeley's argument works. We're going to test each of these qualities against the relativity thesis. It's easy to see how some other sensory qualities might obviously work this way, like taste and smell. Suppose this ball were actually an apple, and two tasters were to give it a try. The first taster, Yum, has a lot of sweetness receptors on her tongue. But the second taster, Yuck, doesn't have so many. Now, when Yum tastes the apple, she's going to say, "Wow, it's sweet," and she will really perceive the apple that way. When Yuck tastes the apple, he won't perceive it as sweet. Maybe he'll perceive it as sour. Now, obviously, nothing changed in the apple between when Yum and Yuck tasted it. Rather, the taste of the apple for both of them is taster dependent. If the taster has a lot of sweetness receptors, it will produce a sensation of sweetness. If the taster does not, it will produce a sensation of sourness. These taste qualities, then, are merely abilities of the apple to produce certain sensations in certain minds. In other words, they are mind-dependent. We can see that the same is true for smell. For if yum has more sweet smell receptors and yuck has less, yum will again smell the same apple as sweet, that yuck smells as sour. So, by the relativity thesis, we can see that both taste and smell are mind-dependent qualities, and go in our secondary quality column. Okay then, what about sound? Well, here's an alarm clock. Let's see what happens when I put it in this jar and use a vacuum pump to pump out all the air. Nothing changed in the alarm clock when the sound went away. So it seems like sound is another one of those qualities that we can produce a change in our sensations of without a corresponding change in the object. But you might be thinking, well, that's because the sound needs air to travel. That is, sound is just a motion in the air, and when there's no air, there's no sound. So now it seems like the quality in question isn't sound, but motion. Is motion a primary quality? Well, take a look at this image. It's an optical illusion. The design itself isn't moving, but if you focus on one dot, you'll see the other circles as moving. And then, if you move to focus on one of those other dots, they'll appear to stop moving. All this happens without any change in the object. So here, we perceive a change in the motion of the object without a corresponding change in the object itself. Think about it this way. We all know that the Earth is turning, but since we're turning with it, we can't perceive that. However, if we were to get into a spaceship and fly far away, the Earth and everything on it would appear to be moving. So, again, motion is a quality which we can perceive changes in without corresponding changes in the object. What about feeling? Well, take these 3 buckets of water. Now this one has hot water, and this one has cold water, and the one in the middle has lukewarm water. If I put one hand in the hot water and one hand in the cold water, and then take both out and put them in the lukewarm water, the hand that was in the hot water is going to feel that water as cold, and the hand that was in the cold water is going to feel that water as hot. So without any change in the bucket of water that was lukewarm, I can produce a change in how it feels. Okay, so it's been pretty rough. We've seen a lot of qualities become mind-dependent, but you might think we've got one promising one left. Size. Extension. Even atoms have extension, so it's gotta be mind-independent, right? Well, it's actually pretty easy to see how our perceptions of size can change without a change in the object. For imagine my hand is smaller. Now it appears that the object is bigger. Or imagine my hand grows. Now the object appears smaller. And we don't even need to grow or shrink in order to see this. For if we bring an object closer to or further away from us, we'll see a change in the visual size without any corresponding change in the object itself. In order to perceive the mind dependence of size, all we really need to do is walk around. So extension is going to be a secondary quality as well. And as Berkeley argued, it seems that all of the qualities we perceive are mind dependent. But if that's the case, why would we think that the objects we perceive exist independently of our minds at all? Some people think, well, there has to be something which holds all of these qualities together. Call this the object's substance. But Berkeley wondered, just how does this substance serve its role? Some say that substance supports all of the different qualities, but this is no more than a metaphor. Think, how does substance support qualities? The way this stand supports the ball? But this stand is something with extension. Thus, it is mind-dependent. Others say that substance is a substratum, an unformed matter which underlies all of the different qualities. But again, this must be a metaphor, for how can we think of this substratum of matter as anything other than something extended and thus mind-dependent? And that is why, according to Berkeley, primary qualities cannot be saved. There are no mind-independent material objects. The world of our perceptions is just that. Mind-dependent perceptions and nothing more. Thanks for perceiving.